Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Sparks of Ingenuity podcast. In our last podcast, I was speaking a bit about my honeymoon, among some other things. And today I kind of want to follow along that similar honeymoon weddings line. In all my free time, which is not that much, but, I make do. I am a wedding planner, so I do services for people at their weddings, whether that's pre-planning with them, decorating during, personal attendant work, or, it can be everything from doing all the wedding planning for them to just helping out and being a behind-the-scenes role the day of. And anyway, I've been working on this business for a few months. I've done a few weddings myself, but I've recently been contracted out for a couple of weddings, and I've realized one of two things that was kind of confirmed for me as a suspicion that I had prior to formally going into the business. But a lot of people, when they're contacting me for services, the thing that they need is someone to decorate for them at their reception space the day of the wedding. Now, this isn't everyone. I've been to a number of weddings where this was not the case, but most frequently when you rent a reception space, in order to decorate that space prior to the day of the wedding, you have to pay extra in some way, shape, or form. Whether you pay to rent the space the night before, which usually you have to pay a full day's fee for, I would like to add, or whether you have to have a dinner there or something to that effect. It can cost thousands of dollars just to get the space one day early, whereas my services are much less expensive. And then you know that it's taken care of. But regardless, I've noticed that this is a theme. And in part, I think it's somewhat cruel of venues to do this. Like, who wants to spend the morning of their wedding decorating? Most of these venues are not that pretty. Their spaces themselves are clean, and a lot of them are nice, but they're not pretty in any way, shape, or form. So it's really difficult just to say, oh yeah, you need this space? Well, how about you pay $4,000 to come in the day before your wedding instead of the day you're trying to get everything done? And I think that's kind of cruel, but I don't know. Someone else be the judge of that, I suppose. Regardless, so there's a lot of this kind of conversation with different venues on when you can get in to do decorations that I've been having because of this career path that I'm trying to follow. And it just always makes me think of my wedding when my husband and I think our venue for our reception was like $500 for rental. So it was very inexpensive. We had a very inexpensive wedding all the way around. It was nice, but, cheap. Anyway, it was, as I'm having these conversations, with different venues, and I'm thinking about how my husband and I, we got in the night before, but we didn't have to pay simply because they were available, right? They had empty space. And we didn't want to do anything day of because I already had to get up and be at my hair appointment at 6 because I had so many bridesmaids, and our wedding was a little earlier in the day. I think it was at 1 o'clock or something like that, and we had a lot of pictures to do after that, but I needed a lot of picture time because we had 12 bridesmaids and 12 groomsmen, including everyone, so that was kind of wild. But either way, that's just one little element of a wedding. Getting in, doing the decorations, making sure it looks the way you want it to. And yet it's something that is so stressful for people because you put in a lot of time to, okay, this is what my decorations are going to look like. This is what my tables are going to look like. And it's fun, don't get me wrong, but I feel that it's become this really stressful process that it shouldn't be. Now, one thing that my husband and I have always talked about doing is It's becoming more popular, but having a barn space for weddings. Again, becoming very popular, a little bit more trendy, but my husband and I have a lot of other uses for it. We just figure it would be nice to have, and then we could rent it out for weddings if we so chose to. But either way, one of the things that we've talked about doing in that business is, if you are doing a wedding, you get the night before and the morning after for setup and tear down. And, it's one of those things that's included in the price. And then if you choose not to do that, you choose day of and you have someone come to set up for you, you get a discount. Because, that way it actually helps us because we can book 2 days. But anyway, we're talking about this, and my husband and I have done some extensive talking about what we would want this barn venue to look like. And one thing that I've always wanted to do is have a pumpkin patch / apple orchard sort of business. I have a lot of business ventures that I'd love to be involved in if I could, but that's one of those that I've always thought would be nice because A, it's my property, and B, even if it doesn't really get off the ground as much of a business, it's something that obviously pumpkins are a bit more to maintain, but apple trees aren't really expensive to maintain, but it'd be something that my children and my grandchildren one day could really enjoy. So it's something I've always really wanted to do, which I have, again, a lot of those. But, we're talking about doing this and having this whole 3-season setup with a bunch of different things that we offer. And I'm really, really hoping that when we do buy a house that we are able to find a property that will suit our needs in terms of exploring these opportunities. But whenever I talk to wedding venues, when I'm helping other people with their weddings, I always kind of ask some questions that are necessary for me as a planner and for the bride and groom to know, but also that kind of give me insight into what I can do as my own venue that's different, that's better, or that is kind of standard throughout the industry that helps me as a business owner. And I always find it just so interesting what I encounter, these people that they don't really have much of a stake in the business other than the fact that they work for the company. They're just kind of a representative. I have talked with some smaller business owners at smaller venues, but for the most part, it's just, an employee. And when you talk to an employee, they unwittingly give you a lot of things because they want to be treated fairly too. And especially if they aren't feeling that way, then they'll, be willing to give you a little bit more. But one of the things that is such common practice in the industry is this practice of, not letting in your wedding parties until the day of. Which, I don't really understand, and I know that there are a lot of less sentimental and more frugal brides that are like, all right, the wedding's not till 4, I have 2 bridesmaids, I only need to be ready to take pictures 2 hours beforehand. Right, 2 p.m., that's plenty of time to go in and decorate before, but for me, and for most brides, I just kind of wonder, why do you want to spend a day that's supposed to be enjoyable and relaxing doing all the decorations when you've spent every other day leading up to this event being a little bit stressed out about, varying things. Again, before my wedding, the day before, we did a lot that day, but we went and picked flowers for my flower bouquets. Great way to save money, by the way. Wildflowers, go find somebody that has wildflowers. Super cheap, super, super easy. But anyway, we went and picked these flowers, and then we had the rehearsal at the church, and then we went out to the rehearsal dinner, which we had at a restaurant, and after the rehearsal dinner, we went, just down the road to where our venue was, and got in there, and we decorated. So we had all of our decorations with and everything, and our wedding was themed after a board game, so we had a lot of other board games as well. Just we had a lot of kids coming and we wanted them to have something to do, and among other things, it was cute. It was something that signified our relationship. But I feel that I had a very simple concept for my wedding, and it still took us, I mean, granted, we had 250 people that we had there. We planned on having less than that, but we had some extras show up. Anyway, we set up 25 tables with 5 different designs that were very simple. I did as much of the front loading of it as I could, and it was basically just tossing these pieces together. So there was something that surrounded a jar, and that whatever was surrounding the jar had lights, string lights that you just strung through it and let it go. The jar was filled with sand, and there was a number sticking out of the top, and that was all. I think there was burlap underneath the whole centerpiece altogether. It didn't have a ton of height on it, except for the numbers that were on sticks, so they were up a little higher. But it signified the board game that our theme was after. Anyway, it was a very simple concept. I did 5 of them, one of each different centerpiece to show people. And we had almost all of our bridal party, plus some, parents and other family members. I think we had at least 24 or 25 people helping out. And my husband didn't get done stringing lights until, I want to say it was like 11 or so. And then he got back, and our venue was about 45 minutes from our home. But he didn't get back to where he was staying that night until, almost midnight. And that was the day before, we had that ability to do that. And I was just thinking that, I'm fortunate that we had the help that we did, but for people that don't, it is wild to think of how extravagant these setups are and these centerpieces and decorations, and they want you to do that the morning of, when you're supposed to be getting ready for your wedding. Whether you're the bride or the groom, I think that's a little bit ridiculous. So I don't know what's with that, but I'd really love to know why that's an industry standard, because I understand that, if you have a wedding Friday, they clear out by midnight. You can have your people that you pay to stay there and clean afterwards, and the next morning you can have another wedding and do it all again. But how often does that happen where venues really have that much turnover? I feel like if they don't have that much turnover and the space is sitting empty, at least for a very cheap price, they don't have to charge as much as they do. But I digress. Anyway, so weddings, they're an expensive affair. And as someone who works in the industry, it's my goal whenever I work with a bride or a groom is I want to get you whatever you need from me as inexpensive as I can get it to you, while still covering my costs and getting you what you want. So I just wish that the industry wasn't, millions of dollars worth at this point, because, years ago when people got married, you could get married for probably a couple $1,000 to have a pretty decent sized, nice looking wedding. And I spent $6,000 on my wedding, and it was very cheap in many ways. We forewent a lot of things, and it was not the nicest space, but hey, that was our wedding. So to anyone who's thinking about getting married, considering it, or is in that process, just remember that you're going to have good memories, you're going to have bad memories. It's going to be what it's going to be, but most of all, it's going to be what you make it. So if your attitude towards it is, this is my goal and this is what I want, and that day you just kind of let everything go, it's not worth holding a grudge over. If there's something bugging you, tell somebody, but then let it go, and for that day, just try to be happy, and it's worth it. You have the best memories that way. Anyway, if you enjoyed today's podcast, don't forget to like me on YouTube and subscribe so you can get notifications there, or follow me on my Spotify for more episodes. We'll see you next time.